Everybody. I'm still June Louis, the NDP candidate for South Surrey. White Rock hasn't arrived yet. I've emailed her to remind her. Hopefully she's just delayed and not totally held up, but we said 6:45, so we'll get started without her. So Rajesh, you're sort of the voice for the NDP, and Carrie Lynn is going to be the voice for the Conservatives tonight, as Tamara Jensen sent her regrets as well, and she can't be with us tonight. So aside from June, we are also missing Gary Jensen, the PPC candidate from South Surrey White Rock. He sent his regrets as well. But anyway, I'll get started if everybody is ready. My name is Scott Wheatley, the Executive Director of the Cloverdale District Chamber of Commerce. We're proud to represent businesses in Clayton, Cloverdale, and Campbell Heights, parts of East Surrey. The Cloverdale Chamber acknowledges that we're meeting on the traditional territories of the Semiahmoo, Katsi, Kwetlam, Kwantlen, Khoikwat, and Tsawwassen First Nations. Now, before we get started with this, our annual general meeting is on Thursday, and we'd love if you'd like to come and visit us for that and have lunch. And you can go to cloverdale-chamber.ca for more information on that. So we'd like to welcome all of our candidates that have made it today. So for Cloverdale Langley City, we have Rajesh, and Rebecca is the expert on pronouncing your last name. I apologize. I'm not even going to say it because I know I'll destroy it and I don't want to do that. From the People's Party of Canada, we have Ian Kennedy, and for the Liberal Party, we have Mr. John Alday. For South Surrey White Rock, for the Conservatives, we have Carrie Lynn Findlay. For the Liberals, we have Gordy Ho. And hopefully showing as the NDP candidate June Louis, but she, like I say, is not here yet. So at this point, I would like to welcome our moderator, Rebecca Smith. Rebecca is our Vice President, Advocacy Chair, and past President for the Cloverdale District Chamber of Commerce. And Rebecca is also the Executive Director of the Surrey Hospice Society. So over to you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Scott. I'm very happy to be here this evening. I really always enjoy making sure that we participate in our electoral process. It is really important that not only as business owners, but as community members, we participate in the democracy of Canada. We share our thoughts, we ask our questions, we consider and think about the platforms that are being presented to us. It is our duty as citizens, it is our right as citizens, and it is our business tonight. So I thank you all for joining us. Scott, is there someone that we need to introduce as well?
We do. We need to welcome our sponsor it's Tori Jacobson from the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board. The Fraser Valley Real Estate Board has been our partner for a number of all candidates meeting, both civic, provincial, and federal. So I'm sure Tori would like to say a few words on behalf of the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board.
He's muted. Tell him he's muted.
You're muted, Tori.
Sorry about that. Trying to be the good citizen. Yes, good evening. As Scott said, my name is Tori Jacobson, and I'm with the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board. The Fraser Valley Real Estate Board represents over 4,000 realtors throughout 7 communities south of the Fraser River, including Abbotsford, Mission, Langley City, and Langley Township, North Delta, Surrey, and White Rock. Next month, the Fraser Valley Board will be celebrating its centennial. For 100 years, our members have played a vital role to help build strong and vibrant communities. Here in Cloverdale, we work in tandem with our public and private sector counterparts to guide, advise, and protect families and individuals in one of the biggest decisions of their lives, buying a home. Past 18 months or so have been a difficult and challenging time for all of us, with disruptions to our normal routines and ways of life. While we are slowly finding some semblance of normalcy, we are not out of the woods by any means. The home buying public has been challenged by a volatile market driven by a series of factors, including a sharp rise in the importance and prominence of home in our daily lives, combined with severe supply shortages as more and more people look to age in place or to renovate instead of purchase anew. This has placed extreme upward pressure on housing prices, and in turn is threatening to put the dream of home ownership out of reach for hundreds of thousands of citizens. Housing affordability and supply are among the most critical issues we face across the entire country. In fact, it's one of the rare common platform imperatives that all parties can agree on. While we acknowledge that there are no easy fixes, we urge the federal government to find the will and capital to work closely with provincial and municipal counterparts to expedite solutions across the nation before we reach a crisis situation. With thousands of members on the front lines of this issue, connecting with buyers and sellers every single day, the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board understands the needs and challenges Canadians face when it comes to a basic right, which is shelter. We are ready, willing, and able, along with our provincial and national counterparts, to collaborate with policymakers and public officials to secure that right for every Canadian. We thank the Cloverdale Chamber of Commerce for the opportunity to dialogue with our elected officials and on behalf of their constituents. And we look forward to a fruitful partnership moving forward. So thank you very much for having me, and we're proud to be a sponsor once again.
We thank you so much for sponsoring and participating in our event, and we really value your partnership with us, Tori. So thank you very much to you and to the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board. Without further ado, I'm going to explain the process for this evening and make sure that everyone knows how we will be proceeding. This organization, the Cloverdale and District Chamber of Commerce, is one that is nonpartisan. Our role is to ensure that we share the information and the opportunity to get the information with our members that is necessary for them to participate in our democracy. We will, as a result of this nonpartisanship, be making sure that our rules are strictly adhered to with regard to time, keeping, and variability and fairness. We will not be having the same person or the same party start each question. There will be a rotation as to who answers and when. We will be cutting off the microphone of the answerers strictly at a 1 minute mark. Though they may need to keep talking, they will not be heard. So you, as each one of our panelists has been told, they will be getting 1 minute to introduce themselves, where they're riding and they're running and their party. After each one is given a 1 minute intro, we will commence with the question section. Each respondent has 1 minute to answer. At the end of that minute, their mic will be cut and we'll move to the next person. Hopefully we can get through as many questions as possible. All of our questions tonight were submitted by our members over the last few weeks as we've been asking for them. They are randomized, but they are categorized by topic. There will, if time permits, be a quick rapid fire questionnaire of 4 questions that each candidate has the opportunity to answer, and we will give each one a 1 minute opportunity to speak at the end. So with that said, I am going to begin. The first question, I will read it out once. Please listen carefully because I will not read it to each and every participant.
Sorry to interrupt the intros first.
Oh, right. So sorry. So sorry. So we will go with introductions first, and I will call upon Ian Kennedy to introduce himself.
Thank you, Rebecca. My name is Ian Kennedy, and I am the People's Party of Canada candidate for Cloverdale Langley City. First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here and online, and thank you for having me. It is a great honor to be a part of the only party that will stand for the freedoms of the people of Canada. Politicians should be servants to the people. Instead, they are servants to big money politics. And I want to bring in my experience as a customer service to bring that experience to Ottawa so that way we can have a free, fair system for all. Now, I do believe that all politicians should be going out there and talking to the people, especially regarding the bills and who the bills affect the most. For it is through dialogue and many different opinions that we move together as a society and as Canadians. And I feel that politicians should be doing this more. Yeah, I don't know where I am on that minute, so I'm just going to end it right there.
Awesome. Thank you, Ian. Next, we'll go to Gordy Hogue.
Thank you, Rebecca. My name is Gordy Hogue, and I am for the riding of South Surrey White Rock and with the Federal Liberal Party. I have lived in South Surrey White Rock all of my life. I have had the privilege of being on City Council here for 20 years, 10 of those as mayor. Subsequent to that, I became a member of the Legislative Assembly for a further 20 years. And during that period of time, I was caucus chair, as well as had 3 different cabinet posts. And during that time, I also went back and was able to earn a PhD at Simon Fraser University in public policy and public policy development. I had a teaching position at Simon Fraser, and then there was a vacancy when Carrie Lynn Finley, or not Carrie Lynn, pardon me, when Diane Watts resigned, and there was a vacancy here in South Surrey White Rock. So I was approached to consider running. I did that and was successful in winning in the by-election, and then in the subsequent election, I lost at that point. I actually had a real job through all of that period of time. I was a probation officer.
Thank you, Gordy. Next, we go to Rajesh Jayaprakash.
Right. Thank you for hosting this event, Cloverdale District Chamber of Commerce. I'm also one of the new members. I'm Rajesh Jayaprakash, NDP candidate for Cloverdale, Langley City. I'm a small business owner right here in Cloverdale, and previously an engineer with a major telco in Canada. I previously ran for Mayor of Surrey with People First Lead. I want to state that NDP has a costed plan that addresses climate change, create 1 million green jobs, and kickstart our economy and COVID recovery, while not raising taxes for average Canadians or most businesses. This is a fiscally responsible plan. It generates 166 billion in new revenue in 5 years. I also acknowledge that I am working from unceded territories of Semiahmoo, Katzie, Kwantlen, Kwakwaka'wakw, and Powassan First Nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh. Next, we will go to Carrie Lynn Finley.
Well, thank you. Good to see you again, Scott. Thank you for organizing this, Rebecca and the Chamber. Very good of you. I'm Carrie Lynn Finley, and I'm running for re-election. I'm as the Member of Parliament for South Surrey White Rock. I'm with the Conservative Party of Canada. My background is as a lawyer, a human rights advocate. I was a human rights tribunal judge for 5 years. I've also have a great deal of parliamentary experience as a cabinet minister, and also now having served for a total of about 6.5 years in Ottawa. My great honor to serve South Surrey White Rock. I look forward to doing it again and to putting people ahead of politics. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie Lynn. And next we go to John Aldag.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to put forward to participate tonight. My name is John Aldag. I'm the Liberal Party of Canada candidate in Cloverdale, Langley City. And thank you to the Cloverdale Chamber, to Scott and Rebecca for making this evening. After all, small business is the heart of our community. I had a 34-year with Parks Canada prior to politics, and I was elected in 2015 and served the community for 4 years until 2019, where I narrowly missed re-election. In those 4 years, I've had many conversations, and I'm really proud to see that our platform for the Liberals has really closely mirrored many of the conversations that I'm having on the doorsteps. We have one of the things I'm really proud of is our $10 a day childcare program that will help women in particular get into the workforce and generate economic activity for our community. We have transit, SkyTrain to Langley. It's been announced. We have a climate plan that has been endorsed by Andrew Weaver, former Green Party leader in BC, and so much more. And I look forward to sharing more on our platform over the course of the discussion this evening.
Thank you, John. I'm unsure as to whether she has joined us. Scott, is June Louis with us?
Yes, she is.
Joan, it's your opportunity to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Scott and Rebecca, for holding this space. My name is June Liu. I am the NDP candidate in South Surrey White Rock. I just want to start off and say that our riding occupies the traditional territories of the Semiahmoo, Katzie, Kwakwaka'wakw, Kwantlen, Kwakwaka'wakw, Powassan First Nations, and it's really important that we remember this and we do our part to recognize our colonial history in the past and actively engage in decolonization in our lives. A little bit about myself. Actually, before I get into that, it's really good to see you, Carrie Lynn. I know you had an accident recently, and I'm glad you're feeling a lot better. Oh no, I'm sorry to see that, but I'm really happy to see you here. We missed you at the CARP event the other day at Bakerview Park, so welcome back. A little bit about myself. I've been a community activist and philanthropist ever since I was a little kid here in Surrey. I've been volunteering for a myriad of community organizations, including the Semi Young Rotary, and I've also sat on the Surrey Social Policy Advisory Committee as a youth representative. During this time, I was getting a degree at SFU in political science, and I also worked for the City of Surrey.
All right, thank you, June. We are, again, just to remind everyone, very strictly adhering to our 1 minute time frame. Scott will put up his hand to give you a 10-second warning. Hopefully you have the opportunity to see that. And we will move forward with our questions. I'll remind everyone that the questions that I will be asking tonight have been presented to us by our constituency members, our chamber members, and our community members. So these are questions that are coming from the voters that are specifically looking for very detailed answers in some of them. So because we are in the middle of a pandemic, obviously healthcare is on everyone's minds. I will start with the first question. I will read it once. Please, everyone, listen. I will not repeat it in interest of time and fairness. The question comes to us from Malin Jordan, who is part of the Cloverdale Reporter. Here is the question. There has been a lot of hysteria over vax passports, both domestically and internationally. Israel has had a pass system for months, yet they have one of the highest daily case counts going. In fact, today, September 14th, they were at their highest case count ever, 10,773 new infections reported. Israel has a more than 80% double vax rate, and they've administered more than 2.8 million third shot boosters. With such high vaccination rates and such high case rates, and a vax pass system that's been in place since early 2021, the evidence is compelling that a passport system hasn't had the desired effect in stemming the pandemic and containing new cases. In BC, the threat of a vaccine card system seems to have not moved the unvaxxed to get their jabs either. A recent Insights West poll in BC found that 99% of unvaccinated respondents said a vax pass system will not change their minds on getting vaccinated. Added to this system, the system offloads a bureaucratic nightmare to Cloverdale's small businesses and threatens their livelihoods. What is your party's position on vax passports, and how do you plan to represent the opinion of your constituency in sharing that with your party? I will start that question with Gordy Hoke.
Thank you. My position and our party's position is that passports are an important part of ensuring the quality of life and health of people in our country. I equate it somehow to being I'm allowed to sit in my house and drink all I want, but I can't go out and drive a car because of the risk I present for other people. I think the same thing applies to vaccines. If someone can sit in their house and not go out and present any type of risk or danger to other people, they should be entitled to do that. But if they're going to leave their house and not be vaccinated, then I think they present a risk. Now, there are some exceptions to that, and there is a process by which one can receive that exception by going through their medical doctor and getting the approval if they have a compromised immune system or based on age. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordy. We'll next go to Rajesh Jayaprakash.
Well, the pandemic has been hard on so many Canadians, and Mr. Trudeau decided to call an election in the middle of the pandemic, and the election is only adding to the pain. And our view is that we have to trust our healthcare expert in this, and this is not something that we should play politics with. So we should not be overriding their recommendations. And Jagmeet Singh and NDP will make vaccines mandatory for federal workers and federally regulated workplaces. And overall, we are also in support of a federal level vaccine passport to make things easier and more accessible for the community that does not have easy access to the passport system. I will leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh. Next, I go to Carrie Lynn Finley.
Thank you. Well, Canada was frankly caught off guard by the pandemic and slow to react. The Conservatives have a detailed self-reliance plan to never be unprepared again for future crises or pandemics. Health does fall under provincial jurisdiction under our Constitution, but I'm acutely aware that many BC businesses worry about their ability to be health gatekeepers, and I do encourage them to let the province know their concerns. Our party is shooting for 90% vaccination, but we recognize that some people do have medical exemptions, they have charter reasons why they cannot get vaccinated, and they shouldn't be punished if they're in that category. So we do not agree with a national mandatory vaccination policy. There are exceptions while we encourage people to be vaccinated. Thanks.
Thank you, Carrie Lynn. John Aldag.
Our party, as far as jurisdiction, which Carrie Lynn referred to, believes that we need to have a strong controls on those who are entering the country, and that's why we require anyone entering Canada at this point in time to have a double vaccination, proof of negative tests prior to coming in and upon arrival. And so that respects the federal jurisdiction piece. As far as the provinces, we also respect their jurisdiction in being able to issue their vaccine passports. We've committed $1 billion to help business or the provinces implement that if they so choose, and to help businesses and organizations affected by the implementation of it. We've also agreed that some legislation is needed to protect businesses and other organizations who are enforcing these public health orders. And so we've indicated that we would provide legislative protections for those organizations and penalties for individuals who don't respect the vaccine passports and threaten businesses and others.
Thank you, John. Next, June Liu.
So to echo what Rajesh had said, that we find that it's really important when things like science and things like medical care, we leave that to the experts, and it shouldn't be a partisan issue. And as the experts have suggested, a vaccine passport is at the time, as things are right now, the best goal. We have seen that with high vaccination rates, with high mask wearing rates, and with good contact tracing, we have seen the evidence support that this does cause cases to go down across the world, especially we've seen that in Asia. And so one singular case study should not discount the success of other locations. And so we will be continuing to support what the experts have said and support a vaccine passport. And again, like what John had said, a lot of this does fall under provincial jurisdiction. So we will be supporting what the provinces decide and do our best to support them in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, June. And finally, Ian Kennedy.
Thank you. Before I answer the question, I would just like to point out that my yellow hand has been up this entire time, so I cannot tell when the 10 seconds are up. Now, with that being said, I and the PPC are completely against vaccine passports. We have found that both the vaccinated and the unvaccinated can both get infected and transmit the virus, which negates the rationale for segregation and vaccine passports. We strongly oppose the vaccine mandates and other authoritarian measures imposed by the provincial governments, and we support individuals and groups that challenge these measures in court. Now, Israel, I like how you brought that up, they're now saying that they need a booster shot to be able to fully have their vaccination passport. This is a slippery slope. And in my opinion, one singular case study does warrant further study.
Thank you, Ian. On to the second question. Again, on healthcare. Obviously, with the pandemic, we've all become acutely aware of the crisis facing our long-term care homes. What is your party going to do to change the understaffing and the danger presented to our senior citizens and the long-term care facilities in Canada? We will start this question with Rajesh Jayaprakash.
Thank you. I will state that we have a very well-planned approach to this. NDP has championed healthcare for a long time, and seniors is an important or a core part of that. Due to the lack of time, I will say that refer to our plan ndp.ca/commitments. We have long championed healthcare. It includes a completely single payer system, pharma care, dental care, and overall a complete healthcare package rolled out as soon as possible.
Thank you, Rajesh. Next, Carrie Lynn Finley.
Thank you. Well, we all know we've had a long-term care crisis and it has skyrocketed during the pandemic. And we need those people to have the care and get it to ensure their health. What we want to see is seniors being able to stay home as long as they can with their relatives if they choose to do so. And to do that, we're amending the home accessibility tax credit, increasing the limit from $10,000 per household to $10,000 a person. We're allowing seniors or their caregivers to claim a medical expense tax credit. We're introducing a Canada Seniors Care benefit, paying $200 a month per household. We want to fix long-term care, boost the number of personal support workers. That's very important. And we'll do that by providing priority and immigration programs and promoting these careers through immigration and refugee settlement. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie Lynn. Next, John Aldag.
I think that what we saw with the pandemic, with so many of our elderly in the first wave dying, should be a wake-up call to all Canadians, and our government has responded with that. We have committed to increasing the air quality in long-term care homes and other institutions such as schools. We're looking at improving the quality and availability of long-term care homes by working with the provinces on standards, having strict infection and control mechanisms in place, developing a safe long-term care act with the provinces to look after the elderly through legislation. We also believe that we need to have better trained and retained long-term care workers. We're committing to 50,000 additional jobs within the field and raising the wage to $25 per hour for those in the sector.
Thank you, John. Next, we go to Jane Liu.
Yeah, so again, to add on to what Rajesh has said earlier, we want to have a nationalized standard across the board for long-term care. We want to make sure that our seniors are getting the same level and a high quality of care across the board. And this shouldn't matter whether you're in a private or publicly owned care home. And much like other health standards, we believe that there should be some sort of regulation. And furthermore, moving forward farther into the future, we want to move towards more nationalization of this industry. We want to make sure that people's lives and people's dignities are not tied to whether or not they can afford a private care home, or even having a difference in what type of care you get. And people's lives should not be an industry in which people seek profit as opposed to seek to help each other out. Thank you.
Thank you, June. Ian Kennedy.
Thank you. So obviously what happened is a tragedy and should never have happened. From the onset of this pandemic, we really need to protect the elderly and those with health issues. Now, in hindsight, the government should have been quicker to realize what was happening and shut down travel to other countries, especially China, where the virus originated from. However, people that were saying that we need to shut down travel were labeled as racists. We need to hold everybody accountable for their decisions that were made at the beginning of this pandemic, especially those in office that made these poor decisions. And since healthcare is a provincial issue, not a federal issue, as said earlier, why is BC not holding these care homes and the companies accountable? These companies let families down. We need to hold them accountable.
Thank you, Ian. And finally, Gordy Hogue.
Thank you. I think that John covered it quite well. I'd just like to add a couple of comments. I think in the riding of South Surrey White Rock, we have about 23 long-term care facilities. I believe 9 of those are public and the remainder are private. The introduction of a long-term care act, I think, is an important statement in terms of being able to balance what is happening in both public and private care facilities. Also, the appointment of an advocate who will be responsible for ensuring that the Long-Term Care Act is being enforced, and we're having that level of quality and care across both the public and private. And my meetings with them have suggested there are some differences in how those are being handled at this point in time. So I'm confident that these measures are positive and will lead to a better management of long-term care.
Thank you, Gordy. On to the next question. Again, still looking at healthcare. Please explain yours and your party's stand on universal pharmacare. For this question, we start with Carrie Lynn Finley.
Thank you. All Canadians should be able to access the medications they need to live a long and healthy life. Canada's concerns will continue to work with the provinces to ensure that Canadians are able to access affordable medication. We will ramp up Canadian research and production capacity by making Canada one of the best jurisdictions globally for pharmaceutical research and development and the production of vaccines and medicines. We'll follow the UK's example by putting in place a sector strategy to grow the sector in a well thought out way rather than just handing out money. We'll negotiate constructively with the industry to reduce drug prices while providing long-term regulatory certainty. In order to promote innovation in Canada, we'll invest $5 billion over the next 5 years in programs aimed at making major advances in these sectors, including pharmaceutical research and development. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie Lynn. John Aldag.
So in 2015, I, and along with our government, campaigned on a pharmacare platform, and we've been working on it ever since then. Our cabinet and government has a plan, a pathway to pharmacare, a national pharmacare system. We have so far signed an agreement with Prince Edward Island, and I understand that there are 2 other provinces that are in negotiations. The issue with the national system in the area of health is that it is provincial jurisdiction. We have to have the provinces on board. That's where it's a bit of a challenge with the NDP's position. They're going to roll out national pharmacare. We're already doing it, but we can't impose it on the provinces. We, as I say, have a plan to get there, and it's starting to happen, which will save Canadians billions of dollars on prescriptions over the years. We also are investing in things like medical research so that we can do vaccine production and eventually develop our own vaccines within Canada. So I'll leave it there because the hand's up. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next, Jun Liu.
Thank you. So our plan has been very simple, very straightforward from the get-go. We want to make sure that there is universal pharmacare across the board to all Canadians. We want to make sure that you're paying for your medication with your care card and instead of your credit card. Nobody should have to choose between life-saving medication like insulin, like their EpiPens, or choose between things like rent. And so we want to make sure that we are also working with the provinces, and that's always something that's going to be on our list of things to do. However, we want to make sure that these plans are rolled out as soon as possible. We want to add it to the National Health Standards Act to make sure that provinces can't hide behind, oh well, we don't have time, or we don't have the budget, we don't have these things, and that these things are standardized and there is adequate pressure on them to make sure that they are making things happen, and they are not dragging this out any longer than it really needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you, June. Ian Kennedy.
Now, I apologize, but I will not work with the provincial governments to effectively implement universal pharmaceutical healthcare. I would prefer not to line the big pharmaceutical companies' pockets, more in a system where big pharma is rewarded by keeping people sick. Now, the Purdue pharmaceutical scandal of 2 years ago really opened my eyes to how they view us and the fact that they want to keep us addicted to their drugs so they get more money. This has helped fuel the opioid crisis that we are currently dealing with in Vancouver and especially in Langley. This is extremely disheartening for me to see. I know that there are very important medicines out there that are life-saving, and we need to keep those readily available for all Canadians, but not ones that will keep Canadians addicted to that medicine. It is my opinion that we need to create conditions for business and provincial governments to innovate and create technologies that are better for us, the people, and not for the big pharma's pockets.
Thank you, Ian. Next, Gordy Hogue.
Thank you. And with respect to Ian, the marketplace, because of being able to come together from all provinces and being able to purchase pharmaceuticals has brought down the price of pharmaceuticals, and our expectation is by greater coordination that will happen. As John had pointed out, there is a pharmacare model being tested in Prince Edward Island, and that model is being funded with the expectation that some of those nuances that we need to put in place to work towards our plan for a national pharmacare program are being worked through PEI. And there are a number of things that I understand have been learned with respect to that. Again, as reference was made, healthcare is a provincial responsibility under the Constitution, and therefore the federal government, through its funding of different models and being able to present ways to support provinces, is a good way to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordy. And finally, Rajesh Jayaprakash.
NDP, as I mentioned before, has long championed a fully funded healthcare system. Decades ago, including pharmacare, since June has covered most of the points, let me remind that Liberals in their 2021 budget confirmed that they have completely walked away because they have allocated $0 towards this healthcare program, finding the excuse that it's a provincial thing. We, NDP, will begin working with provinces right away with a target date of starting in 2022 and with an annual federal investment of $10 billion a year. A national pharmacare program puts an end to the costly payments, deductibles, and premium that cost our families and seniors. I'm sure that Liberals and Conservatives have been dragging this along for decades, and it was in their plan, it is in their plan, and it will continue to be there in their plans for a long time. So, but if you want to see it happening, actually working, I would say vote for NDP.
Thank you, Rajesh. Our next question is on a different topic, international and foreign policy. What is your party's position on the live animal export to other countries? Are you willing to end it? We will start this question with John Aldag.
This is not an item that is specifically in our platform. I know that our government has done work on the humane treatment of animals, consulting with a broad spectrum of those within the sector who deal with animal husbandry and veterinaries and such. I think that we need to make sure that the handling of any livestock or other animals is done safely and in a humane way. And when we go after one sector of the animal industry, it can affect others and have ripple effects. And so we want to have really careful considerations and discussions with those who raise animals, those who protect animals, to make sure that we're doing it in a very sensitive and compassionate manner.
Thank you, John. Next, Jun Liu.
Thank you for the question. I wish there was a little bit more context for this question, but we don't currently have a specific policy regarding this. However, kind of within our core values, we can't say that we wouldn't be following any of the guidelines currently in place to ensure the safety of people in the industry and the humane treatment of animals. But yeah, this is a very specific question, and I don't think we currently have a very specific plan to address this. Thank you.
Thank you, June. Ian Kennedy. Ian? I'm not sure.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Yes.
I apologize. That was my fault. So as with the NDP and the Liberals, this is not in our platform as well. And this is a very tricky one. But me personally, I love animals. My mom is a veterinarian and I worked at that vet hospital for a couple of years in my youth as well. So for this to me personally, I abhor this kind of treatment of animals. I believe that all animals should never have to deal with this. And I would love to look into this further and to be able to find a meaningful way to end this and nip it right at its source. But that is a very tricky part to do and takes looking into on my aspect of things.
Thank you, Ian. Gordy Hogue.
Well, I think the issue which may have brought this to the fore is, I believe it was CBC that did a study on it, and they played on the news for a few days, where they were packing a lot of cattle onto planes and shipping them offshore. And a number of them, I think a percentage as high as 10% of them died before they made it to their destination. And we saw them being packed in, and a number of the people that were videoing this were standing up for humane treatment. And I think that's the basis of this, that these animals were crammed into an airplane and they were shipped overseas with literally no room for them, and that percentage dying. And I think that all of us want to have an approach that ensures that these animals who are being shipped overseas, and certainly those being dealt with in seas, are handled in a humane and positive fashion.
Thank you, Gordy. Rajesh Jayaprakash.
Yeah, as again, June already said, this is not part of our platform, but I want to address that question, but in a more general way. I believe animal agriculture and eating animals, meat, all those things is something that contribute to climate change greatly. And now this is not an NDP position, as we already mentioned. It's more like a personal position. I do eat meat and all those things, but still, many times I try to stop it and have more vegan or vegetarian kind of stuff. I will also encourage everybody to look at Beyond Carnism, the website Beyond Carnism and stuff like that. Compassion towards our fellow souls is something we need a lot in this world, I believe. And of course, that includes the specific point you mentioned, but those are all personal views as of now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh. And finally, Carrie Lynn Finley.
Well, thank you. Yes, this question comes a little new to me just in the way it's worded. So if I might expand it a bit to animal welfare generally, the Conservatives have taken specific action. We want to, for instance, stop the import of animals that are bred inhumanely, ban puppy mills, ban cosmetic testing on animals. We want to add animal cruelty as an aggravating factor in domestic violence prosecutions, where often abusers will threaten a spouse through their pet. We're going to provide $10 million a year to train judges and prosecutors on the links between violence against animals and violence against people. There's a very active group in our riding called Elephantatics, and they've come to see me in my member of parliament office more than once, that are very much against us exporting elephant tusks and things like that. We don't allow poaching in Canada.
Thank you, Carrie Lynn. We're moving on to the next question, which is on a different topic together, on governance and representation. What specifically do you intend to do for your riding in the future if you are elected to government? What is your top priority? For this, we start with June Liu.
I think the biggest priority kind of as a party is to make sure that everybody is able to live comfortably and live with dignity in their ridings, and be able to do things like purchase a home, be able to go to school, be able to get the medications they need, and affordability is always at the forefront, and we're always on the side of workers. On a personal note, I think my big thing is consultation. More often than not, and this is across all ridings, we see a lot of politicians kind of hide away in their offices, whether that be in Ottawa, whether that be in Victoria, whether that be in City Hall. This is something that we've seen across the board, and I want to make sure that I'm there talking to people, I'm accessible, and that politics should not be just for those who are in the elite, just for those who are wealthy, and everybody should be able to have their say and be heard and be represented. Thank you.
Thank you, June. Ian Kennedy.
Thank you. First of all, as I said earlier, I want to end all the COVID restrictions. And for reasons that I mentioned earlier as well. This is first and foremost in my head, and the reason being is because it is the small businesses that are unfairly suffering due to these restrictions. All of a sudden, a lot of these small businesses have lost a lot of clientele over the last 18 months. It pains me to walk through the middle of Cloverdale and to see the closed up shops and no businesses in the buildings. And so I really want to create a better environment for small businesses to thrive. They are the lifeblood of our community through their ingenuity and their innovations. And the only way for our community to move forward is by encouraging small businesses to get back up and running.
Thank you, Ian. Next, Gordy Hogue.
Thank you. Certainly on a national scale, the areas that I've been working on would be affordability, climate change, and healthcare. Those are areas which are crucially important to me. In terms of the process, I've been actively involved in when I was working on my PhD. It was about public engagement. How do we actively involve people? How do we actually develop policy at the 3 levels of government that actually have people who have lived experience as part of that and bringing them into it? As a more localized concerns, I've got concerns that we take US dirty coal through the waterfront of White Rock and to an offshore and ship it offshore. That represents not just ours, but about 20% of the increase in climate change. And that is part of that. Secondly, I've been actively involved in the replacement of our pier. It is not completely done. And those are 2 local area issues, which are very important to me.
Thank you, Gordy. Rajesh Jayaprakash.
Yes, locally in Cloverdale, I believe there are a few issues. Main one is transportation and connectivity. I think what we immediately need is buses in this area, but there are also other issues, homelessness, mental health related issues. But I will expand on transit. It's kind of my favorite domain. As some of you know, in 2018, when it was all LRT, I was a full-time employee. At that time, I called all the MLAs, MPs, and nobody was standing up for the SkyTrain. And that's the point I got involved, formed a municipal team, and we were the first one to say that we need SkyTrain here. And we said we will cancel LRT and bring in SkyTrain. And we did open houses with full open houses, and that's where McCallum got the clues, and he took it up. We believe. I wanted to change the direction of that argument from a activism to more of a political agenda. Successful, I believe. I dream of a
Thank you, Rajesh. Next is Carrie Lynn Finley.
Well, nationally, our program, our Canada Recovery Plan, which is at conservative.ca/plan, is all about jobs, creating 1 million jobs over the coming year to get our economic prosperity back on track. It's anti-corruption legislation because we need to deal with corruption in Ottawa. Mental health recovery. We want to build 50 community centers, 1,000 more beds, getting a job search plan going on the economy, more self-reliance so that we can meet future crises from within Canada, not left like we were this time. Locally, of course, I'm a big proponent of infrastructure to get people, goods, and services moving. We've pledged to, we haven't just said we're interested, we've pledged the money needed to rebuild the foundations of White Rock Pier. We've pledged to replace the Massey Tunnel and the SkyTrain extension. And we believe in veterans and victims' rights and dealing with gang violence.
Thank you, Carrie Lynn. And finally,
Rebecca, I think you've muted yourself.
I said, and finally, John Aldag.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, I hadn't heard that. Thank you. There are a couple of areas on our national platform that really resonate with me. One is the fight against climate change. It fits with my background and an area, the experiences that I have. Also economic recovery. We need to get small businesses and the other businesses in our communities through the pandemic, get people back in their jobs and see strong economic growth from the pandemic. At a more local level, seeing through transit, that's something I hear a lot about. And so SkyTrain to Langley is one piece that our government has committed to, but also to other transit improvements through the south of the Fraser region. I also feel very strong that we need to heal the harms that have been brought on the community by the current member of parliament for some of the things that have been said and done. And I'm committed to having a Fairness, Diversity and Inclusion Council struck to help with that. There's also issues of other infrastructure, cultural and so on.
Thank you, John. We all know that we are dealing with politics and platforms and promises tonight. I want to let everyone know I'm a woman of my word. We have given everyone the understanding that this will be a 1 hour evening event tonight. So we have time for one question left and then our final closing remarks. This question is the final and it deals with infrastructure. As is always the case at election time, there are announcements and promises of funding for large and very necessary infrastructure projects. All parties make these promises. Please be very, very clear. What is your party's top priorities? Are you promising new money or money that has yet to be delivered on previous promises? Do you have a clear and costed plan to make these promises reality? For this, we start with Ian Kennedy.
Thank you. First and foremost, I'm not the kind of politician that's just going to throw money at everything to gain votes, and then sometimes those promises are broken. To me, the biggest thing is we want to balance a budget. We can balance a budget within 2 years by making some difficult decisions. But biggest and first and foremost, we want to cut corporate welfare, which is somewhere in between $5 billion and $10 billion per year. We want to relook at our foreign development aid, find out how much money is actually being wasted, how much is being used properly, and go from there. And we can save billions of dollars in that. We also want to cut funding to the CBC, which is another $1 billion, plus however much Trudeau has decided to give to the media. We want to be a financially responsible government that will balance the budget and then cut taxes as we can, and to make things cheaper for all Canadians. And that is.
Thank you, Ian. Next, Gordy Hogue.
Well, just with respect to climate change, I think that's so important because it impacts our economy and the issues associated with it. And our climate change plan that has been put forward has been reviewed. And it's not just a goal, but there are 2 specific goals at 2030 and at 2050. But it's broken down each year. So it has been reviewed by the United Nations and their International Review Committee, and they have seen it as a very positive approach, one of the most creative they've seen by any country, and looking at climate change and managing it. The former head of the Green Party of the province, Dr. Weaver, has recently come out in support of the plan that we've come forward with. And it's also been reviewed and looked at by Dr. Jacquard, who is also an expert in climate change and the issues around that. So it is a very positive initiative we've taken.
Thank you, Gordy. Rajesh Jayaprakash.
Yeah, so first of all, I like the vigor in that question. Specifically, the NDP has a plan, and I believe for anyone, the climate change should be the priority one. And the way we address it is shifting into a green economy immediately by ending fossil fuel subsidies. NDP has a costed plan that brings in $166 billion in new revenue in the next 5 years. We are also spending $214 billion in the next 5 years. But every year we are reducing the debt to GDP ratio and leading us towards a path of balancing the budget, but we don't have a specific date yet. Now, the way we are doing is creating 1 million green new jobs over a course of period. We are doing electrification of our transporting system. That is an important step. It's hard to enumerate all the steps. I strongly encourage you to go and look at ndp.cs.
Thank you, Rajesh. Next, Carrie Lynn Finley.
I may have misunderstood the question, Rebecca. I thought you were asking about infrastructure as well as cost of plan. Everyone talked about something else. So we have a fully costed economic recovery plan. And on infrastructure specifically, I've been a big advocate for the SkyTrain extension from Surrey to Langley, which we announced the day before the Liberals did, replacement of the George Massey Tunnel to get rid of decades of gridlock there. It has to be done. That has not come from the Liberals. And fortification of the foundation of the pier, which has also not come from the Liberals. So we want to see people south of the Fraser able to move, get around. We also in our housing platform have pledged to free up 15% of federal government housing and lands and to promote and incentivize building near public transit. This is so important. Canada actually has the lowest per unit housing available in the G7. Amazing. So this is an infrastructure question. That's my answer. Thanks.
Thank you, Carolyn. John Aldag.
So to the first part of the question, yes, the Liberal Party has a fully costed plan that is available. And you can find that on johnaldag.ca. There's links to the national platform. As far as infrastructure, I would say that the number one, and this isn't bricks and mortar kind of infrastructure, but new programs would be the $10 a day childcare. This will be absolutely so important for our economy and for women in particular to help grow the economy. And so a huge investment in $10 a day childcare. SkyTrain to Langley, we are committed to delivering that. And that will be absolutely transformative down the Fraser Highway right through to Langley City. The whole infrastructure around it will be very important. But also other transit improvements to Cloverdale, to the west end of Cloverdale, Langley City, the Panorama Sullivan neighborhood are going to also be really critical. The transition to a green economy, a net zero economy, is going to hold huge opportunities for our businesses. And so I'd like to see some investments made in that area in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And finally, June Liu.
Thank you. To kind of address the first part of the question, yes, we do have a plan to ensure that we are able to balance the budget while providing the services that people need to survive. We want to make sure that we are not changing the tax structure towards your everyday Canadians, but making sure that we're going after the big businesses that have profited off us, especially during the pandemic, who have paid next to nothing in taxes. And in terms of infrastructure, we're really big on making sure that we are tackling the climate crisis and the climate emergency. On top of what Rajesh had said already, we are going to be transitioning money from out of the oil and gas industry subsidies into a green new plan and a Green New Deal. And we're going to make sure that that money is going towards building the industries up to make sure that we can transition to a greener future. And then those who were previously working in the oil and gas industry are able to transition their skills over to this new green economy. And if not, we're providing an avenue for them to go back to school and then take those opportunities to then go back.
Thank you, June. So we have had an opportunity to answer 7 questions this evening and to meet our candidates. I am going to take executive privilege and extend our time tonight to give everyone the opportunity to say their final closing remarks. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to say what they want to close off with. But before they do, I will urge everyone to listen carefully and to look at their own pace in their own way and to explore further into the platforms of each party, each candidate, and make your own choice. So in our final 1 minute segment each, we will start with Gordie Hogue.
Well, thank you. And affordability is an important issue that permeates a number of the things that we've talked about. And the Liberal government took the age eligibility for OAS and GIS from 67 that had been moved to by the past government back to 65, which prevented 100,000 seniors from plunging into severe poverty. We've also fully costed the strategy for struggling and managing the rising cost of living. We've created the Canada Child Benefit, which has lifted about 500,000 kids out of poverty with a $6,800 per annum grant. There's a $10 daycare. We've cut taxes on the middle class. We're making people who earn more pay more in income tax rates. And we've cut the tax for small businesses from 11 to 9%, the lowest rate of the G7, helping businesses during COVID and helping them survive and recover. And we have recovered about 92% of the jobs that were lost prior to the pandemic, and we're coming back very quickly. And we've got, I think the US has only had 75% recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordy. Rajesh Jayaprakash.
NDP has a plan that address climate change, create 1 million jobs, as I said, kickstarting our economy and COVID recovery while not raising taxes for the average Canadians and most businesses. And look at the records that Liberals and Conservative have.
Okay.
Canada is the only G7 country where the emissions are still rising. Housing prices increased by $300,000 on an average from 2015. Price of groceries are rising every day, and we still talk about a lot of things like poverty, childcare, etc., etc. While Canada is losing $51 billion every year in taxes from corporations alone. These are PBOs and CRA estimates. So if you think the situation is bad now or getting worse, it is time to do the right thing, not the right now thing, because doing the right now thing every 4 years doesn't make it the right thing. So you have a choice. You need to stand up for your own rights, stand with Jeff.
Thank you, Rajesh. Next is Carrie Lynn Finley.
Well, thank you. I think really what I just want to say tonight, and I thank you all again for putting this forum together, is that if reelected, the people of South Surrey White Rock will have someone who's well experienced, who cares, who leads with compassion, who listens. So many stories over the last 18 months, so many hits to mental health. We've lost more people to the opioid crisis than we have to COVID in the same period of time. We have to get real with each other. We have to help each other. We have to stay together and unite. We need to help small businesses get back on their feet. They're suffering and many have closed up. We need to listen to people, and as I said, put people above politics. We shouldn't have had a pandemic election, but that's what we have. And this is your opportunity to see change in Ottawa, to see a government that will put you first, that will care about the environment, that will care about your kids' future, and will be ethical and accountable.
Thank you, Carrie. Carrie Lynn. Next is John Eldig.
Thank you to the Chamber, all of the candidates who have chosen to participate this evening, and everybody who's joined us for this discussion. I think it's a great opportunity for us to put out some of our platforms and thoughts on how we would hold and represent our constituencies if elected. I also think that we need to look at the local candidates. And in Cloverdale, Langley City, two of us have experience in office. We've also had each of the candidates put out their positions, and so I'd say quite. Ian Kennedy has said he'll balance the budget in 2 years through direct, cuts, and he's the party for anti-vaxxers, anti-maskers. The NDP in Cloverdale, Langley City are a bit of a protest vote. I vote for myself and the Liberal Party. Will get you $10 a day childcare. We'll get you a climate plan that is implementable that will also grow the economy. And if you end up voting for the Conservatives, we'll see more damage from the extreme social conservatism that we've seen represented and presented over the last 2 years in our community.
Thank you, John. June Liu. I'm so sorry. June
That's
Liu.
okay. Thank you so much, Scott and Rebecca, and to the Chamber for holding this. And it's great to see all the candidates out here. It's great to hear from you and actually get to see your faces and put a face to the name. My name is June Liu. I'm with the NDP in South Surrey White Rock. And on September 20th, you have a choice. So we've voted for Conservatives before, we voted for the Liberals before, and we haven't really seen that much of a difference. We've seen a lot of promises, we've seen a lot of broken promises, and we want to make sure that you know that there are other choices out there and that we are one of your choices. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP have had a record of fighting for you. We are the ones that pushed CERB through. We pushed for small businesses to get their support that they needed through the pandemic, and we will continue to fight for you through the pandemic and after that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, June. And finally, Ian Kennedy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me once again. Thank you to all the candidates for participating, presenting their views. And thank you to the two moderators. You two did a fantastic job on running things smoothly. Now, what we at the PPC believe in is freedom, fairness, respect, and personal responsibility. These are words that I would love to bring to Ottawa and stand by. Personally, these are the words that I live with every day, and would love to bring these words to Ottawa. Now, what we want to do is we also want to readjust the small business bill so that it is a flat 15% rate for all businesses with no little loopholes that the big businesses can just lawyer up and get around with all these little loopholes. This is why the big businesses pay so little in taxes. This will also make things fairer for small businesses. And after we balance the budget, we will reduce this rate to 10%. This is fair for all businesses and makes things better to get the leg up for the small businesses. Now, I too personally believe in freedom. I believe in freedom of choice.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. It's been a very important opportunity for our candidates to meet you, the voters. And I urge you to not stop here. This has only been a few questions that were submitted to our chamber, and within our limited time frame, we asked them. But you have the opportunity and the duty, quite frankly, to investigate the platforms, investigate your candidates, and make wise and considered choices at the polls. That is your duty as a citizen in a democracy, and we all should participate. This is our country, and we have to have our say in how it's run. I thank you, and I love that you were here tonight. I'm going to hand over the microphone to our president of the chamber at the moment, Tyler Dennis, who is going to join us for the last few words.
Thank you, Rebecca. Just before I do that, I'm going to let Tor from the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board just say one final thing, and then I'll end up with remarks there.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you candidates for putting your names forward and representing your party and your constituency. I wish you all the best, and we thank you for taking the time to share your thoughts with us. And thank you again to the Chamber for putting on this event, and we're always grateful for allowing us to be a sponsor, and we look forward to many more years of working together in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tor. My name is Tyler Dennis. I'm the president of the Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to first thank again Tor and the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board for sponsoring this event. I'd like to thank Rebecca Smith for acting as a moderator of this event. And I'd like to thank the attendees who came here, all the candidates that took time out of their schedule and have been taking time out of their schedule during these 36 days as we've been running down there. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming tonight, for this civil debate that we had. We've truly enjoyed it, for presenting your wishes, presenting your platform. I truly appreciate you all coming out tonight. I can only imagine that you are all on countdown mode for this election to be done and to somewhat get back to a regular life. And for those that are attending and watching tonight, thank you so much on behalf of the Chamber. We truly appreciate you having here, taking this time, and please make sure if you have not exercised your democratic right, that you make sure you get out and vote on election day, no matter your stripes or your parties or which way you lean. This is your chance to let your votes be heard, which many people don't have in some other parts of the world. And this is your chance to make sure you mark that ballot for that candidate. Thank you again so much to all the candidates, for everybody attending tonight. Oh, and just to note as well, we'd like to thank the candidates that were able to attend tonight. And also, we did invite all of the other candidates that are registered in both Cloverdale, Langley City, and also South Surrey, Rye. Unfortunately, some could not attend it tonight, and we did receive regrets in that regard. So we'd like to also note that we did invite all of them out, and thank you for those that could be in attendance. And for unfortunately those that could not, we do appreciate that you did respond as well. So again, thank you so much, everyone. Stay safe, have a great evening, and on election day, all the best, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep. Can stand it.
So, anyone over there?